there then too.
Were you?
I was Florida State.
Oh, we could have met each other.
What year was that?
68,
68.
yep, in fall of 68. But my plans were not God's plans, thank God. These are words I can say today, but I sure didn't at that time. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read to you Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Well, God's plan for me was my draft number came up that summer in the lottery draft. It's strange, but that's the only lottery I've ever won.
You were number one?
No, I wasn't number one, but I was
Close enough.
I was close enough. I was going, and all I could see is Vietnam. Here I come. But fortunately, my brother was in the Coast Guard, and he was the recruiter in the Tampa district, which helped me get enlisted into the Coast Guard Reserve, a 6-month active duty program with 2 weeks active duty each year and 1 weekend each month. In basic training, I qualified and was a member of the Coast Guard Drill Team Honor Guard. We performed weekly for recruit graduations and any other events or parades that we were requested to. They asked me if I wanted to be the leader of the top 16 Drill Team Honor Guard, but there was one stipulation. I was a recruitist, and you need to be a regular enlistee to be a team leader. They promised if I would enlist, that they would transfer me to Washington, D.C. If I would enlist, that I would be transferred to Washington, D.C. and be a part of the United States Armed Forces Honor Guard. Now, wow, that was pretty interesting to a young guy. And that was a tough choice, and I had to make it within a week. But if you'll recall, this whole military thing wasn't my plan to begin with. Even though I really loved the whole ceremonial environment, the performances, and the camaraderie with my fellow young men, I chose to stay a reservist so I could go back to Tallahassee, start college, and marry my high school sweetheart. However, before my 6 months active duty concluded, that plan changed as well. Here comes Jeremiah again. My sweetheart advised me that she had met someone and was going to get engaged. So upon the completion of my 6-month active duty, I moved back home, got a job as a meat cutter in a small independent grocer on Anna Maria Island, and that's in Florida off the coast of Bradenton, and started attending Manatee Junior College. The next 2 years were pretty wild and crazy until the spring of 1971. I had put together a huge party, you know, one of those parties that you don't even know half the people that are there attending your party. Well, one of those people that I didn't know was this beautiful young lady. She walked in that door, and I sobered up at my first glance. So now, you know why God named a man's helpmate as Whoa Man. And now I knew that Jeremiah really did know what he was talking about. On May 20th, 1972, I married that beautiful young lady, and her name was Nancy Lynn Wells. She's sitting right here today. That summer we moved to Tampa, where we called it home for the next 43 years. I went back to work with Winn-Dixie as a meat cutter and attended the University of South Florida to work on my Bachelor of Arts degree in marketing. And Nancy got a job at the university in the administration department. Those 4 years were really a great time in our life. We had a lot of friends, and we worked in a lot of activities around our work and school. It was a great opportunity for us to really strengthen our relationship. I was able to secure a scholarship for school from Winn-Dixie. And upon my graduation in December of 1973, they transferred me to the regional office in Tampa, where I worked in the accounting department. Then, in 1976, the second greatest event in my life occurred. More specifically, on March 4th, 1976, Nancy delivered our first son, Stephen Trevor Scott. Today, he is a pilot. He's a captain for American Airlines and lives in Fort Mill, South Carolina, with his wife, Deanna, and two of our most beautiful granddaughters, Isabella and Lola. Then my third greatest life event occurred on June 15th, 1978, when our second son, Thomas Ryan Scott, was born. Today, he is the top sales representative for Orkin in the Central Florida market. And his wife's name is Rebecca, and she is a nurse in Sebring at a burn center. And they are working on adding grandchildren. Now back to my work life. After 3.5 good years of working in the accounting office, I knew the only opportunity for advancement included joining the corporate audit team, which meant traveling and being away from home 4 days a week for most of the year. This was never even a thought. So in the summer of 1977, I entered a store manager training program and became a store manager in the spring of 1978. Over the next 3 years, I managed 2 different stores and came to realize that I could have taken that audit job and might have had more time to spend with my family. Looking back now, you can see that I've been walking in my father's footsteps, making work my identity and major focus. And this is not what I wanted for my family, my beautiful wife, my sons. So in March of 1981, I resigned from Winn-Dixie after 11 years, which included my part-time status, and went to work for Pepperidge Farm, where I spent the next 34 years. I started as a district sales manager with account management responsibility. I managed 16 independent distributors in a territory from Tampa to Kissimmee and up the center of the state to the Georgia border, which included Ocala, Gainesville, and Lake City. And I called on 3 retailers, including the regional Winn-Dixie office where I had been employed. 17 months after starting my position with Pepperidge Farm, my 4th greatest life event occurred on August 17th, 1982. 19 years after we left Michigan to go to Florida. When our 3rd son, who was supposed to be a girl for Nancy, Charles Justin Scott, was born. Today, after careers with FedEx and Pepperidge Farm, he's an independent day trader on the New York Stock Exchange. He and his wife are currently separated, and they have joint custody of our 2 beautiful granddaughters, Vienna and Sierra. In the summer of 1982, one day I came home from work, and Nancy told me that she had signed Trevor up to play soccer. Trevor was our oldest. I thought that was a great idea. I had played sports throughout school, and I was a little bit of a sports nut. Then she told me that she had signed me up to be the soccer coach. She's had a lot of influence. But that was the beginning of one of the greatest opportunities in my life. I coached all 3 of my boys in soccer and youth football, and I cannot express in words what it was like to be involved, to really be engaged in their athletic endeavors, both from a coaching and a father's perspective. The pleasure and joy of watching them develop their skills, their confidence, their team mentality, the camaraderie with the kids, and most of all, just the fun that they had in playing sports. And of course, the fun I had in being with my boys. Looking back, time goes fast. Our kids grow up too quick, and this is one time period in my life that I will cherish and treasure forever. In August of 1987, I secured a scholarship from Pepperidge Farm to attend an accelerated MBA program at the University of South Florida. Sounds like a good plan, right? Yeah, well, the next 21 months until I graduated with my MBA in April of 1989, the strength of our family was really tested. With classes every other Friday and every Saturday, and up to 20 to 25 hours per week for in-class studies and preparations, plus managing my current job, dominated most of my waking hours. But you know what? I had the easy part. Really did. Nancy, our family's rock, made it work for everyone. 3 boys, Trevor 12, Ryan 10, Justin 6, all in school, all in youth soccer, all in youth football, and all the other responsibilities that it takes to manage the home and the family. Not even to mention that Nancy was dealing with her mother's diagnosed dementia during this time. Nancy had even had her come and stay with us for a while until she could find a suitable place, suitable facility for her to be placed in. Yes, Nancy made it work for everyone, and I don't know how she did it. And all I can say is that she's just an amazing old man. That summer of 1989, I received a promotion to a newly created position, Regional Director of Retail Sales. That year, Pepperidge Farm also opened a new bakery. I put together a team of 6 people comprised of 4 account managers and 2 retail specialists that worked with the account managers in 2 of our largest markets in Florida, which was Miami and Tampa. In 4 years, my retail team, coupled with the operations team, because you can't just sell, you got to execute too, doubled Pepperidge Farm sales in Florida. And we had finally, those 2 markets had finally made it into the top 10 market share map for the country. Miami was at 4 and Tampa was at 7 nationally. Looking back today, I can see once again I'd fallen into my father's footsteps. All the time I put into work and school and again into my new position, and my new position, my focus was not on the things in my life, my wife and my family. So that focus is straight. I was going through a period, I think, of disenchantment with my life. And I think that happens when you put focus on oneself and you don't have a relationship with Jesus. In 1993, Pepperidge Farm reorganized, going from regions to much larger geographies called divisions. My position was eliminated. However, the regional director of retail operations who hired me was retiring, so they offered me that position. Also, my regional sales manager and mentor retired that year. The 2 divisional sales managers during the 90s that I reported to were far less adequate when compared to the regional sales manager that I'd had. During that time, I interviewed both inside Pepperidge Farm as well as outside of Pepperidge Farm for other job opportunities. Also, as I stated earlier, my mother passed away in November of 1994, and then Nancy's mother passed away 6 weeks later in January 1995. All of these things added to my disenchantment and the feeling of, once again, just going through the motions. Also during this time frame, I broke my marriage vows. I had an affair with a coworker. Nancy and I attended secular counseling and tried to work through my infidelity. But despite all of Nancy's best efforts, our marriage ended in divorce in 2002. In 2003, I started attending the Crosstown Church's Celebrate Recovery Ministries. The church had pastor counselors that ran the program. It wasn't long after I started attending Sunday services regularly. Then from 2004 through 2008, I was a group leader for Celebrate Recovery Ministries. And during that time, I sponsored, coached, and encouraged many individuals, many men, through hurts, habits, and hang-ups. From 2004 through 2007, I completed a 500-hour course in Bible study training for church leaders and completed 246 hours of educational credits for counseling and addiction studies through the Net Training Institute. And then in 2006, a pastor of a small church where Nancy and my son Justin were attending, happened to merge his church with the Crosstown Church, where I was attending, and created the Crossing Church. Nancy, Justin, and I were now all attending the same church. And you call that what you want, but that's no coincidence. We all three began attending church together, and Nancy and I started intensive Christian counseling sessions. We even attended some joint classes by the Net Training Institute. I'd like to read a Psalm 30, verse 5. Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes in the morning. Nancy and I were remarried on March 24th, 2007. And I truly experienced God's grace through Nancy's love and forgiveness. We were active in